Okay, the recording started, so the chat box is open if you need to send me a chat. Everybody is unmuted at my level, so if you're on a cell phone or you have, you want to mute yourself there, that's fine. That'll help cut down on some of the background noise. Sounds pretty good right now, but let's get started. So there was a 45-minute recording of a webinar on the WFR. We're not going to take that long. We're just going to kind of blow through this, and then it's going to be recorded. If you have more questions, we'll do question and answer. You can ask questions as we go, but kind of wait till we, excuse me, kind of wait till we're getting the question and answer phase because I may cover it. So anyway, so let's get going. So this is called the Clear Cooperation, right? It's the new NAR Clear Cooperation rule. Okay, so what is the rule, right? So here it is. Within 1 business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants. I mean, that's the short version of it, right? Public marketing, and we'll cover in more public marketing. They talk about this is off the NAR's website, okay? So if you Google search NAR Clear Cooperation, you'll find it. So let's just start off with a little background. The MLS is a co-op system, okay? I mean, it is. It's just simply that, and that's how it originated, and it was always meant to be a co-op system, okay? So, we use books. Then when everything went online, it kind of changed things around. However, it did not change the fact that the MLS is a co-op system. So as a broker, when I join the MLS, because I join the MLS and then you join underneath me, right? I permit you to have an MLS license underneath me. And because, remember, the listings belong to the broker. That's the law. So the broker is the only one that can publish listings, per se. And so when I join the MLS, I agree to share all my listings with all the other brokers. And all the other brokers, they've agreed to share all their listings as well. So that's the now, what are the benefits of that? Let's think about that, right? So co-op between brokers, right? So it gives consumers more choices and more exposures, right? So think about that. If you're a buyer, you have more choices because rather than, have you ever tried to go look up a commercial transaction or property? I mean, you almost have to go to every broker's website and see what they have. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So, and there's also the thing that I forgot to write on there. The part of the co-op is there's a commission. So when you publish a listing in the MLS, you are offering compensation to other brokers. So now there's no rule to how much that compensation is, right? So it can be as low as a dime, a penny. There's no rule. I always thought it was $10, and they said, well, no, that's, and I'm like, well, $10 is considered, violation of antitrust, and forget about it. So anyway, so it gives consumers more choice. So think about it. If you're a buyer, you have one place to go look through all the listings. If you're a seller, you have more exposure to your listing, right? So when you're trying to sell a property, you have way more exposure, which is, and part of that, right? So those kind of two things right there are kind of the heart of the matter with this new rule, right? So the United States MLS system is the envy of the world. There are other, I'm not aware of any other country that has like a National Association of Realtor co-op system the way we do. So now, obviously, we don't have access to and share listings with other states unless we just view Realtor.com or something like that. However, but in our own MLS system, and all the MLSs are taking their rules from the NAR. Now, our local MLS we can have overlays as long as the overlays don't undermine what the current NAR policy is. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. So there's just a little bit of background noise, not much, but let me just go ahead and mute it. If you want to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay, so now So we are the envy of the world. If you go to other countries, you have to go broker to broker to broker. You know, if you go to this broker, you see their listings. You go to the next broker, you see their listings, and they're not really co-oping. So that's kind of an ick. You know, I mean, that would be not a very pleasant experience for a buyer, and you know, it would basically give advantage to just large brokers would have the advantage. So where in our system, you know, you can be one person brokerage and still have the same marketing as the largest broker in town. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, it's a level playing field. So let's get the next one. So the problems, right? So the problems we're having is where agents are not, you know, when you're in a seller's market, you know, the MLS is, you could still sell without the MLS. However, the MLS, you know, the MLS gives more exposure. So let's look at the problems. So the problems are agents or brokers are holding listings back for their own gain. Now, think about that. There's no reason to hold it back other than your benefit, right? It doesn't benefit the buyers of the public. It doesn't benefit your client seller that you've entered into an agency relationship and you have a fiduciary duty. It certainly, in my opinion, it's a violation of your duty to the seller, because you have a duty to help them sell their home and get maximum exposure. That's why they're hiring you. So holding it back, you do that. Even though you could sell it by running an ad in KSL, Zillow, or just a sign in a yard, right? You could sell it. However, what if you put it in a multiple listing service and you had many offers and drew the price up? Now, whose benefit is it holding back? Just yours, because you're trying to make more of the commission than you are. So you're putting your commission above your client's needs. So that's the problem with the rule. Now, that rule has kind of always been there. It's just with today's, you know, the ability for agents to market online on their own outside of the MLS has never been this great. So agents are tempted to try and hoard the commission to themselves. So, but that's a violation of our contract. We've always had this kind of rule to co-op. And so, and it's gotten lax, and agents are gaming the system, taking advantage of it. So what the MLS is doing is getting back to its roots of saying, no, you have to publish these listings. So what they've done is they've essentially just tightened up the rule and clarity. Okay. So the other problem, less exposure, we talked about that, less choices for buyers, right? So, I mean, if you're a buyer, who wants to go broker to broker to broker? You know, that would be terrible, right? So let's move to the next one. So November 2019 at the NAR conference, they came up with the nuclear cooperation rule, which on the first slide showed you, you know, the text from the NAR site. So the MLS committee overwhelmingly voted to adopt a new rule. So that's rare. So you don't get an overwhelming, it's something like 97% of the members of the committee. And these NAR committees can be huge. I mean, they could have 100 people. So when you have that kind of overwhelming vote, then the membership wants it, right? The membership wants it. So, I mean, I know the temptation here, let's do it coming soon and see if we can double end it, right? Well, that's not in the best interest of your client. In other words, if you had it on the MLS and you have multiple offers and one of them was yours and you were able to net the seller more money, well, then you know, it was for the best interest of the seller, not for you. So and with us, of course, we don't want to do limited agency. We just want to do unlimited or unrepresented buyer, so we don't get hooked into that. The limited agency is just a minefield that's going to blow off your legs. So let's stay away from those. Okay. So the rules, right? So let's just look at the basic rules. So the current policy, you have 5 days to publish a listing in the MLS. That's the current policy. So if you sign a listing today, and the MLS's position is that a signed listing contract is a listing, not when it's in the MLS. Publishing in the MLS just simply means you've published it in the MLS. Okay? So if you sign a listing, you have 5 days to get it in the MLS. That has not changed. Okay? However, so the new rule says when you market a listing to the public, you now have 1 business day to get it in the MLS. Okay, so that's the difference in the rule. When you market to the public, so think about that. So we're going to talk about what is marketing to the public, right? Examples of public marketing: yard sign. So a yard sign is so if you if you sign a listing contract and you order the yard sign, or you put a yard sign in the day you sign the contract, you have until the next day to get it in the MLS. Now, so let's not do that. Let's not put up a yard sign, because you don't want to publish your listings until you have the photos ready, the house is ready, and the photos are ready. Okay. So, I mean, 5 days is plenty of times to get photos. So just know that if you put a sign in the yard, you got 1 more day to get it in there, right? Now there's a little loophole in that. We'll talk about that as we get further in. Okay. So others are examples of public marketing, right? Social media, posting on your Facebook group, but on your Facebook stream, emails, send out emails to clients, right? Send out an email to a database listing, right? Flyers, mailers, right? Do flyers, mailers. One of the things they mentioned in the webinars, brokers would put a flyer in the window. They'd have a storefront. Those are pretty much gone by now. That type of brokerage is pretty much gone by the wayside. So any website, so if you have a personal company website or anything like that, that's public marketing. Private listing networks. So what are they? So what private listing networks are, and I don't, they're not that prevalent here in Utah, but in other markets around the U.S., you'd have these groups of, like mega teams and mega brokers would just kind of do coming soon. They would share with each other, and just kind of eliminate people from the market. And that's like, well, that's a violation of everything the whole MLS stands for. We as brokers, I mean, we're all about co-op. That's who we're about. We're co-op. That's what we do. So, and it's in the best interest of your seller. So let's not, so we don't do that, right? So, is that it? Okay, yeah. So that's it on examples of that. So there's other examples. So there's no real coming soon, right? There's no real coming soon where you can start marketing and, so the theory behind coming soon was you could advertise it, but you weren't allowed to show it. But we all know that doesn't work. So, and our MLS doesn't have a coming soon policy. We just stick to the regular policy, right? So an office listing. So you can have an exclusive office listing that is not required to be published to the MLS. Okay. And we don't have these. I mean, if you want one, let me know. I mean, we'll just modify the contract. But what that says is, what an exclusive office listing says is you're only allowed to market it to the agents in your office. That's it. Now, if you got 1,500 agents, that could be a possibility. However, you're now only going after a limited agency, I mean, so it's impossible to market it to your office and not have limited agency, because if another agent represents a buyer, then, the broker's limited and the 2 agents represent their respective clients. Now, me personally, I'm okay with 2 agents, 1 broker. I'm not okay with 1 broker, 1 agent on limited agency. So we can do limited agency as long as each party has an agent representing them. Okay. So that's what an exclusive office listing is, right? Can only be marketed to the office and not marketed to the public. So I don't see any benefit there, right? So MLS Exclusion Form. So the MLS Exclusion Form still used as normal, right? So if you have a client and they're not going to be ready for X amount of days, say they're not going to be ready for 10 days, well, that's fine. You can use the MLS Exclusion Form, okay? So, however, you can't, while using that, you cannot market to the public. That's the issue. So we'll talk about that, right? So let me pull up the form because they've added it. And we used to have the MLS delayed entry. That form is now, we're not allowed to use that. So we have to use the the MLS exclusion form. And so, and I mean, I get why they're doing it. So exclusion, I'm going to pull up the form and actually show you, because they have a few things in there that really wasn't on our form, right? So one of the things it says in there, right? So owners acknowledge, right? Where did it go? Do not submit owners. The property will not be advertised on the MLS. The listing information will not be distributed to, and there's probably more than that. Potential buyers, the listing information exposure may be reduced and could result, and days on market will be calculated. So when you sign this form and submit it to the MLS, right, the seller's got to sign this, and they got to agree that now you put to where you're going to put it in so many days. So, you know, the seller understands that. So you can use this form if your seller's not going to be ready. However, there's one caveat to this. When you use this, once you market to the public, then the form doesn't apply. In other words, you can't sign that form and then start marketing it, right? Because whose benefit is that? Again, that's a violation of cooperation, and it only benefits you, the listing agent, does not benefit your client. Okay? Excuse me. So, however, let's see what in a minute. So, off-market status. So with the MLS exclusion form, the days on market applies. So you have to turn that form into the MLS within 5 days, just like you would the listing, right? So you either have to publish the listing in 5 days or within 1 day of the marketing, or you have to send the MLS the form within 5 days. And then again, once you market it, then the forms you have to still have 1 day. Now, if you put the MLS listing in the MLS, so Debbie said she's included in our forms. Yeah, so that's now included in our form, but it's in the MLS. So with the MLS, if you use the forms in the MLS, you can populate it a lot easier. So anyway, but it is in our forms. And I don't know if it's on the complete packet or not. Did you pull out our MLS entry addendum, the late entry addendum from our complete packet and replace it? Perfect. She said yes. So perfect. So, but here's another thing. What you can do is throw the listing in the MLS. Now, I wish you could just automatically publish it as off market. You have to put it as active and then change the status to off market, and then the days on market don't count. And so one of the things too. So, but what you're saying is, if you're publishing the listing as off market, what you're saying is it's not available to show. So, and I see this as a problem coming, because you can have a sign-in card and then change the status to off market. Okay, now that's gaming the system. If you're doing that to benefit of you, I got issue, because one, it's a violation of it's a violation of the spirit of the rule. It's a violation of your fiduciary duty to maximum expose the listing for your client, right? So just do that to trying to gain your own gain is, because Aubrey and Associates, I mean, we exist to serve, right? The company exists to serve the agent. The agent exists to serve the client by putting the client's needs above their own, right? I mean, that's who we are as a company. So, I take issue if you're gaming the system for yourself, right? So I see this as a problem. 3 months and this is going to be a mess, because agents are going to put it off market and they're going to do all kinds, So apparently you can't do other public marketing, right? So, if you're doing public marketing, then you're back to the 1 day rule. So, but just know now you can throw it in the MLS as off market and the days of market won't count. But if you're showing it and other agents can't, you're in violation of the spirit of the rule. Okay? So any thoughts or questions on that? I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody in case you have. Now be real cognizant of your background noise as I unmute everyone. Any questions on this? Thoughts, concerns, hallucinations?
So, Rob, where I have done an MLS exclusion form for my client, when I put that on the market, it's going to show from December 6th That it's been on the market?
Yeah, it's going to count those. Now, it'll say days on market, 0 CDOM, whatever that is.
So it'll, okay. So I should have just taken it to off-market status till they're ready.
Well, the rules, yeah. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but it's still going to show up as a new listing. I wouldn't, I don't see much of a problem with that. I really don't.
Okay.
In this market, especially in this marketplace, right?
Because they're just having a hard time getting it all done. I thought I would have it listed by now, but
right.
They're having a hard time finding everything and getting it finished.
Right. So use the word publish because it is listed. Remember, when you sign a contract, it is a listed property. Okay?
Okay.
So what you meant by listing it was publishing it in the MLS. So let's see, Vonda. So is this related to all? This is a National Association of Rules. This is not. Now, each MLS may have its own set of policies, but they cannot undermine what the National Association of Realtors is saying. So they can add, it's like overlays. You can add requirement, like a bank overlay on a mortgage policy is, let's say the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac guideline says 620 credit score, but the bank can say, well, we only do loans with 640. So, that's considered an overlay. That, in other words, it didn't undermine Fannie Mae Freddie Mac's guidelines. It just added, it increased the level. So local MLSs can increase the rule, but they can't undermine the rule and make it less. So in other words, let's say the Fannie Freddie rule is 620, you as a bank can't say, well, we're going to do 600. You just can't do that. So does that answer your question, Vonda? So Park City has, I don't know the Park City rules. That would be, but I would imagine they're very similar. So, but you double check. So I just wish Park City would just dissolve and join the WFR and make it simple. So anyway, any other thoughts, questions? That's a side topic. Any other thoughts or questions on that? So, and then have you, that was you, Becky, that you said you had the MLS exclusion form. Have you submitted that to the MLS?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I gave it to them, and in fact, I called them and asked them to send it to me, and they did, and I got it all taken care of and sent right back.
Yeah, it's in the forms of the MLS. You type in the word exclusion, it's the only form that shows up.
Yeah, and I couldn't find it for that day. I don't know why. Right.
Any other changes besides the publish within 1 day? No, that's the main rule. And the reality is, this is really this is the tightening up and a clarity of an existing rule. In other words, the rule to cooperate has always been there. Okay, that has never went away from day one. It's just that 21st century agents are gaming the system. Because what's happening is, it used to be brokers did all the marketing, and then agents and the brokers were, on a 50-50 split, and the broker did all the advertising because, 30, 40 years ago, there wasn't the internet to market. You just had signs and newspaper ads and flyers in the window. That was it. So, and if people wanted to find a property, they went to the, even though you had the MLS, but you used the MLS books. So you still had to go to an agent. So anyway, so back then it behooved everybody because you didn't have the other opportunities to expose a lot of people, but the maximum exposure to agents is by far clear and above all the other marketing you could ever do, the best benefit to your client. So let's make sure you're really clear on that. So anyway, any other thoughts, questions, concerns? If not, I will go ahead and stop the recording and we'll go about our days and make money. Going once, questions going twice, questions going third time. Sold to the no question. You have an amazing day, boys and girls.